Hey there, Fletch from All Things Overlanding here. On today's video, I'm going to be doing a long-term review of my Prymax, aka Enginstar, aka a million other brands on Amazon, 300 watt hour portable power generator. This thing is really great. I've had this for about a year now, and that's why I kind of wanted to walk you through it. So I'm going to talk you through the features, and again, I'm going to give you my after a year, my long-term thoughts on this thing, whether it's a good value, the features of it, and whether it's right for your application. But without further ado, let's dive into talking about the Prymax 300 watt hour power generator. All Things Overlanding is brought to you by Red Arc Power Management Solutions, rugged bound supply company, rooftop tents, awnings, roof racks, and more. Overland Addict, premium overland gear. Last US Bag, overlanding bags and equipment. Northology Overland, trips, and a monthly overlanding magazine. All of these companies are really amazing, so I highly recommend you click through the links in the description below to learn more about each of them. If you're new to the channel, I did just want to say really quick, I do a couple videos a week. I do gear reviews, talk about do-it-yourself mods. I'm a weekend warrior type overlander. I go whenever I can, but I don't get to go on as many long-term trips as I would like to. So if you're into that kind of stuff, budget type overlanding, do-it-yourself type stuff, you know, budget gear like this kind of thing, definitely click that subscribe button, click the bell to be notified when new videos drop. If you get value out of this video, I'd love it if you click the like button as well. All right, guys, so as I mentioned, today I'm going to be doing sort of a long-term review on this Prymax 300 watt hour portable generator. Let me start by kind of walking you through these features on this thing, because there's quite a bit to this thing that is pretty beneficial, and so I just want to make sure that you kind of know everything about it. So, you know, as you can see here on the front, there is a power button. That is for the DC, and then there's also another power button for the AC. So, you know, the DC is like the 12 volt that comes out of your car. The AC is like the, I don't know what voltage is. I'm not an electrician, but like the electricity that comes out of your walls, those are these two plugs, right? So you've got two AC plugs down here. They are pure sine, which all that means is that it's clean energy coming out. You don't have to worry about big fluctuations or anything like that that are gonna hurt your devices that you're running off the AC. You also get a 12 volt DC plug. So just like a cigarette lighter style plug that you've got in your vehicle, you got one of those on here as well. So if you need to run something off DC, I personally have run my fridge off of this. I have run like a heated blanket in the winter off of this. So there's a million things that you can run off that, but anything that works with a DC plug, you can plug in there. Down here, I've never used these before, but you do have these 24 volt out plugs down here. Again, I'm assuming it's for something sort of not proprietary necessarily, but for something specific that I just don't use. So you do have two of those though if you need them. You've got two normal USB plugs, and then you've got a USB-C plug. And this one down here is the input. So again, you can charge this off of DC from your car. I did have to, one thing that I will say, I had to buy a DC plug for this. So I had to find a 5.5 millimeter sized plug with a DC, you know, cigarette style plug, you know, male plug on the other end of it to charge this off my vehicle. But it does come in pretty handy to be able to charge this once you're out on the trail. Otherwise, you have to use AC. It comes with that. It comes with an AC brick and wall plug-in, so you can charge it up at home. But then once you're on the trail, if you're moving around during the day and stuff, I like to throw the DC plug in one of my regular cigarette lighters and charge this thing up while I'm driving. Might as well, right? Then on the back here, there is, and this is a little bit silly, but just in case, it's kind of nice. I do find myself setting this out like on a little table at night so I can charge, you know, my phone, or if my kids are with me and they've got their iPads or things like that, we can sort of charge them away from the vehicle. There is a light on the back, which is actually pretty bright. But so it just gives you, oh my God. Oh, more flashing. Yeah, I forgot it flashes on two different settings. But it does have a flashlight on the back, which is just kind of nice. Again, if you're going to use this like a stationary sort of like hub in your camp, you could turn that on and use it to kind of light up the area around the battery, which is kind of nice. But let's talk about this thing a little bit. Again, I've been using it for about a year. I have recently switched to an Odyssey Deep Cycle AGM battery in my vehicle. What that has done for me is it's basically allowed me to make this secondary. So again, I was previously using this to run my fridge. In the summer, and I'll put a tag to it up here, I did a review on this thing where it ran my 58 quart Alpacool fridge for 14 hours in the summer. It was pretty hot, started out over 100 degrees in the thing, and I took it from 100 down to 32 or 35 and ran it all night. And it did really well. It actually did really well. But now with that AGM battery, I have a lot more capacity on that to be able to run it And so I've just been running that off that. So what this has become for me, and the reason I'm telling you this is to give you an idea of like the best application for something like this. With 300 watt hours, it's just not really big enough to run any like AC stuff for very long. And it's also not going to be super powerful to charge a ton of things. But as like a backup battery, one, like I said, that you can use around camp, you can put in your kid's tent if they come with you to charge iPads or Apple Watches or, you know, any sort of things like that, little devices, laptops, anything like that. I love this thing. I also use it up in my rooftop tent a lot as like a power source where I don't have to worry about, you know, getting nervous about like running stuff off my truck. So for example, like I mentioned, a heated blanket in the winter or like a small fan in the summer, lights, things like that. Again, charging small electronics. I just use this as a way to protect my starter battery so I don't have to worry about, you know, whether I'm going to kill that overnight if I leave something running. Worst case, I kill this thing. No big deal. I get up, I start the truck, I plug in the DC plug, and I charge it throughout the day. And then by the end of the day, it's charged back up and I'm ready to go, right? So this is a really great backup battery to like an AGM or a lithium starter battery. One problem that I did notice with it when running my fridge particularly is when you run things off DC, right? So just the normal operation way. So when you run it off of just the regular old DC power, it is trying to be smart. And what I mean by that is if it doesn't notice any power draw for some set amount of time, maybe 15 minutes or something like that, it will turn itself off to conserve power. The problem with that is, especially overnight, you know, if your fridge isn't running, which the goal of the fridge is to run as little as possible. So you see it turned itself off right there. If the goal of the fridge is to not run, right? So if it hits that temperature, then it recognizes it hits that temperature and it shuts off the compressor so that it stops drawing power. When that happens, this battery pack goes, oh, there's no draw. And after a little bit, it says, you know what? I'm going to turn off too. What happens when that happens, though, is the fridge shuts off. The fridge doesn't know what temperature it's at. And then the fridge doesn't know to turn back on. And it doesn't have a way to turn back on because the power source is dead. The power source has shut itself off. So what I've had to do and how I got 14 hours out of it was I actually plugged in through AC, which is significantly less efficient than DC. So that kind of sucked. Like if the DC would stay on this, it would actually be a really valuable battery and I could probably run my fridge for several days off of this little thing. But because of that, that is a concern. So if you are looking for something to run a portable refrigerator in like an overlanding situation, this is not really a great option for that. So again, like the best uses for this thing, in my opinion, based on my experience over the last year, are charging small electronics, right? Again, giving you peace of mind so that you're not going to kill your battery because you're charging your phone and running a fan and electric blanket and stuff like that off of this instead of the starter battery. In addition to that, some advantages are portability, right? So obviously your battery in your truck, if you need to go to another place, if you're hiking somewhere, not too far away because this thing's a little bit heavy. I'll put the weight down here, how much this thing weighs. But if you want to take this over again to your kid's tent or like to a table over by the campfire so that you can charge things or run, small electronics off of it, this thing is great because it is portable. And then kind of the last sort of benefit of this thing versus like a big AGM battery or especially like a lithium battery is cost. This thing runs for about, I've seen them as cheap as about 150 to 180 bucks up to about 225, 250. I got this for around 180 to 200 when I bought it a year ago. So again, for the money, for less than 200 bucks, the way that I look at it, when you look at these things online, generally it's about $1 per watt hour that you get. It's like generally a 300 watt hour, power generator is about 300 bucks, 500 is about 500, 1,000 is about $1,000, right? So that's kind of how they break out. Now there are changes and fluctuations to that, but that's just kind of the rule of thumb that I use. This one you get 300 watt hours for under $200. So really it's a pretty good value. And again, I've used it for a year. I've discharged it and recharged it, 40 times probably. It still runs like a champ, still holds battery like a champ. It works great. The fact that it's portable too means I can put it inside the truck. So I do a lot of winter camping so it can stay warm in the cab. And then I don't take it out until after the end of the day to put it in my rooftop tent or whatever to run my electronics. So it gets a little bit less wear and tear. I feel like being inside the vehicle or, kept inside your house versus like a starter battery that's out in the elements and it's just going to have a little bit more weather effect to it. So again, those were kind of my thoughts. Those were the pros and cons of this thing. These are the features of this battery. If you have any questions, definitely post up in the comments down below. Let me know what you'd like to know, and I will happily test anything that you want to know, or get you answers for anything that you want to know. If you guys use this battery pack or something similar, post up in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys are using that's working well for you. And other than that, again, in the description there are links to Facebook, Instagram, my podcast. I've got a Patreon page that's really cool where we're trying to build like a really unique group of overlanders that without judgment, without all the elitist snobby stuff, people can just come and hang out and like ask questions without being berated by people. So definitely I encourage you to check out the Patreon thing. I'd love to have you in that group. We chat all the time, so it's super fun. But other than that, click that subscribe button, click the bell to be notified when new videos drop, and we'll see you next week.